Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Jessie and you are watching Reliable Roots, and today's video is a special collaboration of Draw My Life. So be sure to check that description box below for a playlist link where you can see a bunch of other cool YouTubers draw out their life stories. I am centering my life story on my addiction and withdrawal, and without further ado, I'm just going to get right into it. I was born in the great state of Texas back in the 80s, and I was a cute, adorable little baby, and I was very happy as a child. Born to my mom, my dad, and my brother. That was my family at that time, and since then my family has grown and changed all sorts of ways. And we were a military family. My dad was in the Army, which was pretty cool. I always loved that. It made me very patriotic. And here is my very bad drawing of my dad's uniform, which that's what that's trying to be, but we're gonna move on. Anyway, we got to travel to Germany, and I spent 3 years as a kid in Germany, which was really neat. But then my dad got out of the military and we ended up in the sunshine state of Florida in Panama City, where there was a lot of sand and a lot of bugs. And when I was about 7 years old, I was playing at a playground when I happened upon some poison oak, and I crawled around in it and got a really nasty rash on the back of my legs, and it was kind of miserable. So my mom took me to the doctor, and I had to stay home for 3 days watching I Love Lucy reruns on my stomach because the rash was on my back, while I did this bath regimen with medicine, and I also had some steroid ointments to put on the rash. And this event is kind of significant because prior to this I had no problems with my skin whatsoever, but after this event I was diagnosed with eczema, and I was told that scratching would make it worse, but I'd probably grow out of it, and so they gave me some topical steroids to apply to my eczema whenever I had a flare-up, and bath regimens and that sort of thing to help me deal with it. So we did that for a few years, and on to middle school. Ugh, does anybody really like middle school? I know I didn't. I really didn't. So in middle school I tried out for cheerleading and was more shocked than anyone that I actually made it, because only popular girls get to be cheerleaders, and somehow I made the cut, and I still didn't end up popular, but it was fun to be a cheerleader. And then I also did band at the same time and learned how to play the flute, and I was pretty awful at that. Meanwhile, in the midst of the insecurities that middle school brings, my eczema continued to spread. And moving on to high school was a lot better for me than middle school. I got involved in an academic program called International Baccalaureate, and it was very strenuous, but I made a lot of really good friends there. I also deepened my faith in Christ and also had college on the mind constantly. I wanted to go to the mountains and I needed money to get scholarships, so I was constantly working towards that. I also switched from flute to percussion and fell in love with percussion. Now, when I was about 15 or 16, I went back to the dermatologist and asked him when I was going to be outgrowing this eczema, and he said, actually, you're probably never going to outgrow it. You'll have it for life. So in that case, I asked him to write me out the biggest prescription for triamcinolone that he could, because that was the only thing after all these years that had ever done anything for keeping my eczema at bay. And without hesitation or warning for any kind of side effects, he went ahead and did that for me, and I had pretty much an unlimited refill on prescription strength steroids. After that, I graduated high school with the International Baccalaureate diploma, which got me lots and lots of scholarships, which enabled me to follow my dream of going to the Blue Ridge Mountains and studying music in college. Now for me, college was wonderful. I met the love of my life there. There were waterfalls, music, mountains. It was great. However, I was flat broke, working 3 jobs, and at this time I ran out of my steroid cream. So I went to the pro bono doctor that came in once a week at campus, and I told her I needed more of it, and she was the first doctor ever in 10 years of using steroid creams to give me a warning that, hey, you probably shouldn't be using these every day. But she also didn't give me any other solutions, and I needed my skin to work so that I could work. Fast forward to 2009, I'm married, I'm settled, I have a house and a good job, and it's the first time I decided to tackle my eczema. So I googled eczema cure and came up with about 1 million results. But I decided that I was going to stop taking my steroids completely and see what happens, because surely I'd be able to fight this without steroids. And at that time I also decided to become a vegan and see if my diet would help with my skin problems. However, it wasn't long after stopping the steroids that I broke out in eczema head to toe. I looked awful and I felt worse. So my friends convinced me to go go back to the dermatologist, and this new dermatologist had a great idea of a bath regimen plus high potency steroids for 2 weeks. Then you lower down to lower potency steroids for another 2 weeks until you are finally free of steroids. Unfortunately, that whole regimen didn't work either. As soon as I tried to step down from the high potency steroids to the lower ones, the eczema came back and started spreading like crazy. I finally just decided to do away with all prescription strength steroids and just stick to the over-the-counter stuff, and I only used those every 2 to 3 days, and I thought that that was good enough. However, I noticed that my skin was really starting to thin. It got so bad that I couldn't even shake anybody's hands without my knuckles cracking and bleeding. Fast forward to 2012, I had my first baby. 2014, I had my second baby. My first pregnancy, I was vegan. My second pregnancy, I was vegetarian. But then after that, I noticed that I had tooth decay for the first time in my life. And I realized that I was losing a lot of minerals with my diet, so I decided to go back to eating meat. So by 2015, I had been using topical steroids on a regular basis for 20 years, but I decided to give them up yet again because I knew that they weren't all that good for me, and I was using them every day again, even though they were over the counter. Then during that time that I was taking a break from them, something happened on my Facebook page. I came across an article for TSW, also known as topical steroid withdrawal, topical steroid addiction, red skin syndrome, and all the light bulbs went on. I knew that this was what I had, and so began my journey with withdrawal. The first few months weren't that bad, and then I found out I was pregnant with baby number 3, and even after that, I still wasn't all that bad. Everything was completely manageable until that summer when I decided to go to the pool, and the chlorine or the sun or the heat or something set off my first major flare. In all my years of dealing with eczema, I had never experienced anything this vicious. There was oozing and flaking everywhere, elephant skin, deep wrinkles, swollen lymph nodes, depression, decreased energy, decreased appetite, insomnia, zingers, cracked skin, and the itch was unreal. It felt as though my bones themselves were itching and that my skin was just constantly on fire. My dermatologist couldn't help me except to offer more steroids. Everything that she gave me just burned my skin even more. I took great comfort in my TSW support groups on Facebook and in sitting in a bath every single day for hours on end while my kids watched PBS. Other treatments included LDN and immunosuppressants, but I really didn't want to do anything with those either. I think the worst side effect of withdrawal, however, is the eczema herpeticum, which is just like a cold sore breaking out all over your face, which has happened to me now 5 times in the course of my 2-year withdrawal. Then in October, I welcomed baby number 3, and it turned into fall and winter, and for the first time in years, my skin started to look better. I could actually wash my hands without writhing in pain, and I started to play with my children. I started to see the light at the end of the tunnel and had hope that my skin might one day be healed. And with that, I started to think about starting a YouTube channel, partially because I was so inspired by so many other TSW warriors who were willing to put themselves out there during their darkest day and share their story. And so I started my own channel last year. However, this disease was still not done with me, and in August I had an even worse flare the second time around. I remember trying to do yoga and I couldn't even move my wrists because they would just crack and bleed. Over the course of withdrawal, I've spent hundreds on lotions, balms, ointments, supplements, essential oils, you name it. I've even taken a food sensitivity test to see if maybe I have an intolerance to something. Not to mention all the arm wraps, gloves, and bandages I've also bought. This second flare lasted from August to October, and most of that time I spent writhing in pain in a bathtub. But then the cold weather set in and my skin started to feel so much better, and that is where I am at today. I'm nowhere near done with TSW, and I don't want to pretend that I am, but right now my skin is wonderful. And if there's one message I'd love for you to take away from this today, is that TSW is completely preventable. Every day I see people online going through this, and my heart goes out to them. I'm completely broken for them, and I hope that this gives you some encouragement if you are going through this yourself, that you're not alone and that healing does happen. Although I am not done and my skin is not completely healed, it is far better than it ever was while I was on steroids. And I want to thank all those other warriors out there who have shared their stories, and without them, I might not have ever known that this is even a real disease. I do hope that 2018 brings healing for me, or at the very least a warning label on topical steroids so that nobody else will have to go through this hell that I've had to go through. If you'd like more information on topical steroid withdrawal, please visit itsan.org or redskinssyndrome.com. Also check out the first ever written book about red skin syndrome by Kara Ward, and also the documentary that should be coming out sometime this year called Preventable. Thank you so much, Kara, Brianna, Nina, Selena, Stephanie, Joey, and so many other TSW warriors for sharing your message. Please be sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe, and don't forget to share with someone you think might be impacted by this disease. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time. Bye!